Hey.
All right. Yo,
Hey.
welcome back. So we're back with the First Draft Podcast. Fred, Blanca, and Chris here. Tonight we've got a response to the Reddit. That seems to be a favorite. We enjoy doing it too. The Am I the A-hole thread, and then also a response to a video that Fred shared earlier this week, and we watched it, and we're going to respond to it. It's on the rise of anti-intellectualism. So
yeah, I didn't think it would actually become a point of discussion for our group, but
it goes right in well with
it rose through the ranks
so,
of topics, and
I think it's a really important topic. So we're going to try and tear that apart
nice.
Here a little bit later. So yeah, Blanca, you want to?
Yes, I want to.
Kick us off with the.
I do want to kick it off with the Reddit. Okay, so the Reddit question is, am I the a-hole for uninviting my cousin to my wedding? My wedding is in 2 weeks. We told people they can bring one guest, which can be their partner or their kid. But it's just a +1, as it's $95 a person for us, and we have a budget. The only kids going are the ones involved in the wedding, which is my own kid, my brother's 2 boys, and my soon-to-be brother-in-law's 2 boys. But they are also part of the wedding anyways. We made up cute parts for them so they can walk down with us. Okay. My cousin, who I will name David, is bringing his long-term partner, Nancy, to the wedding. They have a 1-year-old and a 10-year-old boy, and asked to bring them both literally right after I said no kids. I told them no. 2 weeks later, David called me and begged to allow them to come, as they had no sitter and they would pay for the 10-year-old's food. I felt bad and told them fine. And then today happened. Today we were having a pool party for my nephew, 6-year birthday. Their 10-year-old kid, Antonio, was relentlessly bullying the other kids, but he was heavily targeting my 6-year-old nephew and his 4-year-old brother. It was bad. That's how she wrote it. I write the details of what happened, but it's not allowed in this sub. Whenever we called his dad, David, to come and handle it, he would pretend he didn't hear us, as he was too busy drinking with his girlfriend. Each time we'd yell at Antonio to stop, he would stop for a few minutes, wait until we weren't looking again, then go after my nephew again. My brother ended up kicking them out of the party after 2 hours because it was that bad. Even worse, my brother later told me that they were not even invited. Someone told them about the party and they showed up with no gift, no food, nothing, ate most of the food, drank all of the beer, and then became livid when my brother attempted to parent their son. Antonio has bullied his son in the past at family parties, and my brother said he's been unable to relax with family because he's always having to protect his son from Antonio, and he's sick of it. Long story short, I have decided to tell David we are not comfortable with Antonio coming anymore. To be honest, I'm not even comfortable with David coming after what I witnessed today. I grew up with David from age 4 to 10, so I wanted him there to celebrate with me, as we have so many childhood memories together. But I don't like what I saw today. It makes me worry about what could happen at the wedding. Even though the wedding is in 2 weeks, I am sending him a message tomorrow saying they need to find other arrangements for their children or they can't come. Am I the a-hole for uninviting his kid? Woo!
What's the original?
That's heavy.
What is the original? What does it say?
The title?
For uninviting my cousin
to my wedding.
So is the kid the cousin?
No, the dad.
David is the cousin to the person that wrote the post, right?
Yeah, the person that wrote the post. Yes. David.
And so Antonio is his kid?
Oh, you're saying because she said my cousin too. She did write uninviting my cousin to my wedding, and then she said uninviting the kid. But I think she's basically saying if he doesn't if he can't leave his kid somewhere else, then he will be uninvited
too. He won't be able to come.
Uninvited also.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because she's
Let's take this apart. There's a lot there. Where to start?
That's how I took that in too. Like, basically, it's contingent upon if the kid's coming or not, and if he chooses to allow the kid to go, then he's disinvited.
If he says I don't have any place to leave him, then she's gonna say, okay, well
you can't go.
You can't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
And it's pretty much because the kid's disobedient for the most part. And
I don't know. I mean, I guess.
Well, she said it. That was the whole Reddit post.
So if the kid was well behaved, then they'd be invited.
Yeah, he's a bully, and the dad like starts drinking, and then he doesn't parent.
Oh, you know, I was gonna go the other way.
Oh, you
now
switched
I did
mid segment. You switched your position.
This is her wedding, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's once you're betrothed, once you're married, that arrangement comes first, and even though he's family, he may have to kick rocks. I mean, I hate to say it. Like, hey, if you can't behave yourself, if you're gonna get wasted at the wedding, and you have disobedient kids running around. I mean, usually I'm all for it. I know a lot of modern weddings they don't like kids there now.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of strange, but yeah, in this circumstance, absolutely. Like,
yeah.
I think,
so you think David's the a-hole, not the poster,
not the OP? Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think, Fred?
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with what he said.
Yeah.
What do you feel?
At first, I thought that you were gonna say because everyone's well behaved, but he's trying to mooch off, because it's an extravagant wedding. He's trying to bring everyone around.
Extra guests at the expense of the OPs.
He would pay, but he said he would pay.
So it's not even about the money then.
No.
Okay, because when you first started talking, I was like, well, the issue is that these weddings are so freaking extravagant. But if it's not even the money, then
no.
It seems like it's about the continuity of how the wedding operates. It's like she doesn't want disruptions with the kids, which is going to make her day. It can inconvenience her day, and it's supposed to be her special day. And marriage is not just like that's something that's special and something that's.
I mean, I understand, honestly, why you would be like, only the kids in the party are coming, because kids can be annoying as heck. They're a blessing. They're great, right? But when they're 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and they're together, 10, 11, 12. 2, 3, they get together in a group. They'll start they will hijack the wedding with Ring Around the Rosies and screaming and crying, and she just and on top of that, it probably cost at least $100 a person.
She said $95 a person, but he said he was going to pay that, so that's not really the issue.
No, I'm saying like a regular wedding, people wouldn't want kids to.
I get that.
Like a regular wedding, I'm sure is $100 minimum a person,
at least.
So yeah, you want the adults there more. But what else do you think?
I think just generally with your how you think the wedding should be, I think that I don't know. I mean, it's kind of normal. I think it's natural for kids to be there, and it's only, I think, in the fact that weddings have gotten so expensive that you have to make these calculations. Which, I mean, the modern expensive wedding is kind of a contrivance. It doesn't need to be $30,000. It can be $3,000, and
I don't know if it can be $3,000 though. Even like if you do it in a field, and it's your family's
well, church will marry you for free.
Yeah,
and
true.
Then you can you buy some nice outfits or whatever, and you have your immediate family. Boom, and you go to someone's house afterwards, and you celebrate. And that's it.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But sometimes people want more also, and they can afford more. Well, so I don't think but
usually a lot of people who do pay for these extravagant weddings, they can't afford them, and they will.
True.
They'll save up for them, and you got to think the wedding is a liability. We haven't discussed finance yet, but it's a lot. The actual what you pay for it is kind of a liability. You could argue the ring isn't, because the ring is an asset.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
Everything else is a liability because you put the money into it and it just goes to zero.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
you can't just count the memory. You can't just count the memory, and the experience is zero or net negative.
And you get pictures and no, it's
more
special.
than that.
No, I think it's definitely
it's more than
special.
that.
So explain to me. This is a weird. I mean, who knows how strongly they're correlated? I don't have the data in front of me, but more expensive weddings are correlated with higher divorce rates.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
I don't know that. I don't know that data. I'd like to look at that, but I don't think
makes sense to me.
I don't think that's what we're talking about.
No,
actually, if we dial back into the original post, actually, finance was not the true issue.
No, it wasn't.
she did mention that
she
didn't want kids, or she limited to the kids because of the $95 per person. So she said because we have a budget.
I get that.
In her case, not in everyone's case, but in her case, it is like budget
financially related.
Yeah,
I guess is what you're saying. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's.
But the fact that the guy or the father of the kid was willing to pay that cost offsets her worry about that. It's like more about her. It's more about the disruption within the wedding. I feel like more.
It is, but she also said when he said he would pay and he just kept talking, I finally said fine. She was not happy, even if he was going to pay, because the thing is that other people have to find sitters, right?
Right.
Yeah. That's
an expense.
And
if you don't have a family member to watch your kid,
you don't have family, especially like a lot of people will fly in, you know. Mm-hmm. And if you're flying in, like you're not just gonna get any random babysitter if you don't have family there.
Oh, that's a good point.
But for him, other people would be like, I thought no kids were allowed except the wedding party. These two kids are not part of the wedding. People will definitely think that because they have to go through things to leave their kids behind.
Right.
So even if he paid for it, she was like, it's gonna make me okay, fine. You know?
I agree.
Okay.
I've actually, I don't want to cite the person whose wedding this was, but I think I've ran into a similar situation at another wedding where somebody brought their kids, but it wasn't part of the plan. It wasn't
and
part
they
of.
Didn't even say they.
No, they just showed up with them, and they were small kids, and it was an issue.
What?
Not a real issue, but it just.
They just let it go because you're not going to create a whole scene.
At that point, you can't do that. I mean, we're at a specific point in time. What are you going to do?
I hope they brought a large envelope for doing that.
I don't know about all that. I just remember that being something that was talked about, and I was like, ooh, it can be difficult.
You know, I think there's a larger trend I've seen in society too. Is you go places, and I think that was that whole. Do you all remember that thing on? I think it was a video that went viral about. It was like an older lady lecturing a younger lady at the bar about bringing her kid in there.
No, I didn't see it.
Do you remember that?
No.
It was like a newborn. It was a really like a 1-year-old.
Why would they allow a person to bring a baby?
They changed the law, I think, here in Kentucky, and he should know
where it was. I don't know where this was, but it was. People were like, "Who's actually was a really good? Oh, that would have been a good one." Am I the a-hole? You know, people were like, "Is the elderly woman the a-hole for lecturing the younger woman?" And she didn't do it in a she was
in a rude
nasty.
way.
No, she did it.
Oh, it was pretty rude. Poor behavior.
And then the young people were like, "Oh, is the younger lady the jerk for bringing the kid into this adult area?" And I've bartended before, and I like kids, but I'm like, this is the adult area,
I was gonna take it back. There was an issue that I talked to a friend about where they went to the movies, and a lady for I think it was Mother's Day, brought a bunch of young kids to the movies. Young kids,
on Mother's Day, though.
Yeah, like if it's 10, 11, 12, it's very hard, like what you said, to control kids at a place where the respect for a quiet space is needed in order to enjoy the experience.
Yeah, exactly.
I would think, in my opinion, that the person who brought very young kids is the a-hole. Not because I don't think kids can go to a movie, but for that specific experience on that specific day at that specific time, that's a little much, even if you brought a newborn that you can't really control when it's going to cry or not. And it's not the baby's fault if it's crying. I mean, I would never say that's a negative, but it's just crazy that how people perceive an experience that is shared, even through capitalism, that's a shared space that people paid to be at. And it's like, dang, you're kind of encroaching on my rights to enjoy something.
True, exactly. And when you're asked not to, you just shouldn't. It's a law. You're being it's a law. It's a rule like that.
Yeah, at the marriage, they're specifically asking them.
That means don't.
Yes,
I
agree.
And also, even the best parents have different levels of, or they discipline their kids differently.
Yeah.
So, for example, And a lot of parents, once you have a kid, you learn to tune out the noise, and you might not even notice how loud and rowdy they're being because you're like used to them.
You're desensitized to your own kid.
Desensitized to it. Other people aren't. And then also what might be rude might not be rude for them, might be rude for me. Like if your baby starts crying, go outside. You know, for them, they might be like, oh, it's a baby. I can do 3-4 minutes of before I go outside. And the reason I was saying that was because people parent in weird ways. And today, and I'm going to say this and we can wrap it up. Today, I went to church, and this was I wrapped up at a church that I'm not going to go to anymore.
Oh, okay.
But I went, and after church, in the main area, they like have chairs and tables, and they sit and eat. And then there's a little sofa area right here. So imagine everyone eating there and the sofa here. I'll look over, and this mom has her entire right breast. I'm talking about
that's
out. No cover, nothing. And she has her baby, and she's putting her nipple in his mouth, and it keeps coming out. And I was like, and all the kids were around, and I don't know that lady. This is the last time I'm going to be at the church. I was like, do you need a cover? Like, I couldn't even help it because I'm like, this is crazy.
You slightly lost it a little bit.
I lost it, but I like stayed calm because I was losing it.
Yeah.
And she said, oh yeah, I think there might be something in there, because she was not going to cover up. So I found a onesie this tiny, and I put it on there, right? And she's a large lady, and her boobs were like huge, and that wasn't going to cover much. So I looked in there, and I grabbed another onesie, and I put it on there, and she moved it off so like her boob can be exposed a little bit still, and she could
tragic.
And she could accommodate the whatever. And I grabbed her, and she was probably like, who are you? I grabbed that second onesie, and I pulled it over the kid's mouth, and I looked at her like, stop exposing your boobs and your nipples, right? And so then I went and I told the pastor, right? But the pastor's wife, and the pastor said, I'm going to go right now. And like, she tried to stand in front of her and get her something. And she said she does it every time after church and during the service. And we've asked her not to, or like not breastfeed, to cover up. And she says, my baby doesn't like to be covered when he's breastfeeding. And it's like, look, now you got me thinking you're trying to disrupt the church and the members, because it is weird. It's to the point
it's intrusive on everybody else's experience during their worship.
Inappropriate. Okay. The kids are there, teenager guys and girls are there, everyone's there. And we're like, if I was the pastor and the wife, I would be like, if you can't keep yourself covered up when you breastfeed, you cannot come to the service. Period. I would be so strict on that.
Is there, I don't know the construction of the church. Is there like a back area she could go to maybe
the kids area or something?
Like breastfeed, breastfeed in a private area. Not that I want to infringe on anybody's mother's right, but there is a certain respect. I think it comes when people are in public. Like, you have to respect everything.
You have to respect. I mean, there's nothing wrong if you want to breastfeed your child in public. I don't think so. But that's why they sell the little aprons. Like, it's so private, right? Mm-hmm. So, I brought that up to say some people are really normal until they get around their kids. And then you're like, dude, you're a weirdo, Like, so you never know how parents are going to parent.
Well, I think I just found a new reason to go back to church, and I think that'll wrap up the first segment. Let's wrap it up.
That's wild.
That's funny. That is funny. That's a good one.
Close your ears.
TMI.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
Oh man.
Hey.
All right.
We are back.
We're back. Welcome back. So we've got this video that's been mulling over in our minds. Fred sent it to us, and it stoked a lot of conversation, and we have to respond to it. This video is called American Anti-Intellectualism. I can't recall the name of the creator, but I went ahead and did a summary of the video the transcript through ChatGPT. So
I'll link the creator in the description for people that want to reference the video. So I'll link it.
It was interesting. It's a couple years old, but it's, this is philosophy. This philosophy is eternal. So sure. I think it deserved a nice response, because I think he had good points and bad points, and this is really what we'd like to get into with this project we're doing here. So I'm gonna go ahead, and this is a summary of the transcript. So this discusses the rise of anti-intellectualism in American culture, especially since the pandemic began. The speaker explores how anti-intellectualism manifests as the rejection of science, reason, and knowledge in favor of conventional wisdom, gut feelings, or religious beliefs. This mindset is not limited to a political group, but it's used by both groups to maintain power in America. The transcript traces the roots of anti-intellectualism in American history, noting its origins in the Puritan and Protestant evangelical beliefs brought by European colonists. These beliefs emphasize self-reliance over intellectualism, leading to a cultural suspicion of intellectuals and educated elites. This distrust was reinforced over the centuries, particularly through political rhetoric that painted intellectuals as disconnected from quote-unquote real American values. The transcript also examines how anti-intellectualism has been exploited by politicians and corporations to manipulate public opinion and maintain control. This is an important theme we're probably going to discuss later on in the podcast. Propaganda, milieu control, things like that. Maybe mass formation psychosis, something I want to explore a little bit. I digress. Examples include the downplaying of scientific consensus on issues like climate change and the use of populist rhetoric to appeal to voters who distrust elites. The creator highlights the dangers of the mindset, and he claims it can lead to the spread of misinformation and hinder society's ability to address complex problems effectively. Nice. A lot there.
That was a good summary. That was a good summary. Wow.
So that's a 20-minute video, summed down. Like I said, we'll link that in the description. There's a couple definitions I think we should go over. We looked some of this stuff up, and I think that's a pretty good definition. An intellectual is someone who uses intellect, and then intellect is the faculty of reasoning and understanding objectively, especially with regard to abstract or academic matters. That kind of kicks us off. We got some examples of intellectuals, and it's interesting what the AI spit out for us. These figures are very notable. Noam Chomsky, Susan Sontag, Michel Foucault, which is the most cited scholar in the world.
Okay.
Bertrand Russell, the logician and mathematician. Actually,
yeah, I like him.
I like Bertrand Russell. Hannah Arendt, Edward Said, Cornel West. He is running for president right now. I don't know if he's dropped out yet or not.
He probably should.
Judith Butler. She's the founder of queer theory. Stephen Hawking, obviously astrophysicist, and Martha Nussbaum.
Who are the first 5 or 6 since you named them?
Noam Chomsky is a linguist. He's written several books. Susan Sontag, she was the founder of the camp art style. Michel Foucault was he's pretty much the founder of postmodernism. And he had some peccadillos in his personal life, which I probably can't say on YouTube, but you can find out if you want to. Bertrand Russell was a logician and mathematician, and Hannah Arendt, she did general philosophy. I want to say I have some of her work somewhere.
And Stephen Hawking, just because I really like him, it's quantum physics that he was a specialist in, right? Or like he furthered the theory.
Astrophysics.
Oh, it was astrophysics? Okay, yeah. I didn't know that.
Black holes. He did a lot of black hole theory.
Okay.
Cornel West is more sociology and race stuff.
Yeah, it's race stuff for sure.
And then Edward Said, who I was not familiar with, he is a Palestinian-American literary theorist and public intellectual known for his work in
post-colonial
studies.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, post-colonial studies, that's rooted in Frantz Fanon's Wretched of the Earth, where post-colonial studies is founded. And that's where you get the whole decolonization thing. And the foreword for that book was actually written by Jean-Paul Sartre, the other
I know him.
Interesting.
I know Sartre,
French philosopher who will probably get demonetized and deplatformed if I say what he did in his personal life. So we'll leave that as an exercise to the viewer. So I'll start off this video. He mentioned, obviously the tone of it is very, he doesn't like that people are anti-intellectual. He thinks intellectuals should be people who are highly regarded. Maybe you could call them elites. Obviously, this has a real heavy academic underpinning. So he thinks anything that comes out of the universities is a net plus when it's questionable. And that's something that we need to explore too, because epistemology and ontology, the two main branches of philosophy, epistemology, which is the study of what we know and how we know it, all of that stuff comes from the university. So all that's pretty much in the West and in the United States, all knowledge production, everything that we know comes from the university. That's huge because they have immense influence over everything you read on a day-to-day basis, everything you on the culture. I'm sure we mentioned this before. These people with fancy titles in their job name, they go on talk shows and kind of proclaim what we should do and live our lives.
But a lot of origin of those standpoints are historical, though. It's not like just, don't get me wrong, you do have modern people that have modern takes on the original source of the knowledge, but this knowledge traces back. It's not like, they have influence.
Some does.
But a lot of it does. Like, even when we're talking about these philosophers, these are not people from like 10 years ago or 20 years ago. This is from hundreds of years ago. And when we talk about it in regards to epistemology, which is how we know what we know, I think that's very important, because at that point, if we're not arguing that or like not discussing that, then what are we discussing? Like, we have to build a framework with which we define what we're discussing and how we're positioning ourselves in a particular philosophy. Correct? Or am I wrong?
Sure. I think I know what you mean. I think I know what you mean. When it comes to the philosophies, a lot of the beliefs that come out of the university, they are new, hundreds of years old. The university's it was founded in the Middle Ages, so 1,000 years ago. They were started as seminaries, and you studied the trivium and the quadrivium, and the highest, basically the most rigorous topic they had back then was theology, which makes sense because you're studying something that can't really be measured. And this actually predates empiricism and the scientific method, which is in the 1500s. After the 1500s, you have the Enlightenment. Fine movement, but there was still a connection with the metaphysics there. Mm-hmm. In the 1800s, you have this is a huge topic. I'm not going to go into it now, but you have a huge changing in the way we understand man and human nature, and that comes in the realm of psychology, which is a huge kind of focus now. And then in the 20th century, you get all of the different political academics in the department. So these are all the studies, the women's studies, the ethnic studies, pretty much where your critical theory stems from.
I'm sorry, what was the one before this? That one you just said?
Which one?
Before the 19th and 20th century?
Enlightenment.
Women's studies and all that? No.
So psychology, the way we started to understand man was through psychological man. So the philosopher Philip Reeve, he talks about this. He's a Canadian guy, very intelligent.
And how long ago was he from?
He is, I think he's still alive, actually.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So yeah.
So he
There's something that
documents the
predates
change.
him. I mean, like you've got a bunch of people that are talking about psychology way before him, right?
Yeah, no, I'm saying that he's a writer who noticed this change in how we understand.
Oh, okay.
Basically, how we come around to modern man, how modern man is, which is psychological man, which is a new way of interpreting human nature. It presents. Carl Trueman talks about this in his book from 2020, The Rise and Triumph of the Modern Self. I think is what it's called. He's a theologian at Grove City College, but I digress. The video was very. It took issues with a lot of science and a lot of just common wisdom. It was on the heels of COVID and the vaccines, and during the time we didn't really know what was going on. We were agnostic about everything. We didn't know. And now looking back, now we know what we knew, or now we know what we know, and it's been demonstrated that a lot of these intellectuals have actually led us astray, and their credibility is grounded in their credentials. And the issue is that we're still asked to trust their credentials and their expertise when they've demonstrated they've demonstrated that they're experimenting, which is okay, but they say that they know the things, and that is what I have a real issue with actually intellectuals. They can be trusted if their philosophy is sound, but I think that they need to be reined in a little bit, and a lot of their heads are really big, and they probably need to just chill for a little bit.
What do you think about that,
Yeah, I wanted to pass it over. Sorry, guys.
No, you're good. I'm just trying to take everything in that you're saying. I do have maybe some things to say, but no, Pete, what do you think?
Yeah.
I already kind of, yeah.
Or you can keep talking.
Yeah.
This is, I'm learning right now.
Mm-hmm. I know, Fred, you'll have a lot to say about this because.
Oh, I don't really. I don't.
I think that's so. There was a couple issues in the video too. The young man, he said he quoted over to a PragerU video where a little clip where they have different presenters on there, and someone said, "Oh, well, trust the science. You shouldn't trust the science." And it was a little clip, and it's like, yes, you should trust the science when the science is sound, but a lot of science is an ongoing process. It's not something that is definitive. Like we said in the last episode, Newtonian mechanics was the gold standard for 500 years until Einstein flipped it on its head. So it's always a process, and a lot of this stuff.
But there's still overlaps within those two systems. There's still correlations. There's still confirmations.
That's what I said.
Yeah, it's not like it. I mean, it flipped. It flipped, but it's not like it like eliminates the complete sector of the basis of the knowledge. And then I guess this is what I'm trying to say about this is I don't, I think that I don't know. I need to think more about it, actually.
So there's a couple other things I'll say. I think that certain intellectuals. So this is the issue. He said.
I think he was talking more
anti-intellectualism. So that anti-intellectualism and being against intellectuals in general is bad. And I would say there's certain people who are purported as intellectuals who aren't. And there's certain people who are, and you have to be able to discern between them. The way I filter my information, I like to figure out who has a high truth preference and who has a low truth preference. And there's a are you really dedicated to the truth, and to what degree? Are you willing to risk your life on the truth, or are you doing it for a paycheck?
Are you grifting?
Are you grifting?
Yeah.
So that is a big thing for me. So it's unfortunate we have to go through these tests now. When I like to think, I don't know, I'm sure it wasn't always like this. I like to think it was 50 years ago. You didn't have to do this, but
No, you had to do it 50 years ago because
you should always be doing it.
Because what he's talking about is how this either being an intellectual or being anti-intellectual, how does that affect the influence upon the mass population? Like how is the mass population affected by the influence of what either of these groups say? Right. And I think that's what he's exploring in that video, which is why I find it interesting.
To say based on that.
Yeah.
So what I've noticed is so he's conflating. For example, obviously, I noticed the religious argument and the political argument.
I agree.
So he is conflating religious people with anti-intellectualism, and I think that's unfair.
In the middle part,
he's also
to a certain extent, yes.
Completely.
Yeah.
It's an attack video on that, and it's an attack video on. It's not an objective video. So if he wants to talk about intellectualism demands objectivity. It was a very biased video because it seems to me that he has some type of like gripe with religious people, and he might truly have a valid reason to have a gripe, but he has could be.
Continue, sorry.
So I think it was a way to satisfy his gripe. So, for example, he also conflated.
I think it's a little uncharitable, Blanca.
What?
That he was trying to satisfy his gripe. I mean, I think he actually believes this stuff.
Yeah, you may be right.
Yeah.
But I think that he knows that he is also. I do think he believes it because for whatever reason. But I think he also knows that he knows what he's doing at the same time. He believes it, but at the same time, he's still like, these people bother me. And I'm going to group them all, and they are going to be called anti-intellectuals. And then these people that are on the right politically, they bother me, and I'm going to group them. They're going to be, in my mind, one person, right? And I'm going to call them anti-intellectuals. And then the rest of the video, he's like, the intellectuals are the people who, and I don't disagree with him, intellectuals are the people who subscribe to the scientific method, empiricism, theory, testing, the people who are actually
results, evidence,
critiquing things, critical thinkers, philosophers, but he basically, that's why I don't think I'm being uncharitable. I think he is conflating groups of people. Just because you're religious doesn't mean that you aren't an intellectual.
I agree with you. I completely agree on that point. That's a good point to make.
And just because you're on the right, doesn't mean that, and just because you're on the right doesn't mean that you are saying, well, I'm not getting vaccinated. Regardless, I will say that I did get 2 COVID vaccines, and I was just as sick with COVID before and after. I don't know what that means. Maybe it means that I had a different strain, and it doesn't even matter. All I'm saying is that he's being uncharitable because he has these ideas of who these groups of people are based on his past experience, and he lumps them all in and creates this image in his mind of the person that fits that, and then calls them anti-intellectuals, is what I'm saying. And I feel that that's not being an intellectual. That's not being objective, and also his argument, he's straw manning whatever he doesn't like. And I think that in order for you to present a good case, you should steel man your arguments.
I agree.
And you're of course if you
I agree with that.
Whoever that Prager video,
me and him just was talking about him earlier, like Dennis Prager.
Video he clipped, like he may have chosen like the most idiot MAGA person, because he wants to make sure in his mind that at the end of this video that the person that has no opinion walks away saying every Republican is an idiot, like that guy in the video, because he strawmanned and he showed maybe the worst example. He showed the worst.
But to be fair, he didn't just show bad examples of like the worst Republican. He did go into it on the Democratic side too.
Okay.
Like he did.
What did he do? What did he do?
I can't
Well,
just remind me.
I mean, I only watched the video once, but he did have a separate segment where he showed that the Democratic Party could use those same inferences to the data and manipulate people to see a certain side.
I do remember him saying
that's all. Just to be fair.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
He said that they can do that, but at the same time, the personifications that he built and talked about, they weren't really on that side of it. They were on this.
He front loaded, He front loaded with an attack on the right, and
I think he tried to be
well, and I think it had more to do with politics and influence more so than the actual philosophy itself, which I think is the danger.
Yeah, he was
that he's trying to.
Politics is very surface level.
It is, but I think that's what he was trying to address more so than getting underneath the true belief systems and the actual philosophies that underlie why people choose a particular political road. And that can be very
a slippery slope.
Exactly.
But what you said also, I was thinking about, I was like, well, is intellectualism really the issue at hand, or is it truth? And how you go about it.
That's exact. So this is, that's crazy you said that. There's an alternate, intellect as, I can't remember who said this, but Aristotle posited that humans have a rational soul.
Mm-hmm.
What separates us from animals is that we're able to reason.
Mm-hmm.
We're able to think abstractly. Reason and rationality go hand in hand. Rationality means that we can pattern recognize and predict the future, with not
certainty though.
Right.
With a high probability.
Theorize.
Yeah.
So basically, if we have a rational soul, the highest capacity of the soul would be the intellect. And the highest intellect would be not the faculty of reasoning and understanding objectively, especially with regard to abstract or academic matters. The highest, because you can do all that or think you're doing all that and test with a high IQ and have a very prestigious degree, as we saw. Did you all see that video with the 6 kids, college kids, and there was a molecular biologist going to school for that at Harvard or something like that, and they asked her to rank what she thought the IQs were of all the other kids.
Oh, and I did see that.
I didn't see that.
I did.
She thought, she's like, yeah, I've got to be 130 or something like that.
People were ranking their own IQs.
She was ranking everyone else's
other people's IQs.
And she rated the kid 4 years younger than her, who was in like ROTC. She's like, yeah, he's just a high school graduate. He's
like a 105.
Yeah, he's got to be like 90 or 100 or something. So he ended up having a higher IQ than her. And
she ended up being
she's going to be a PhD.
She ended up being the lowest IQ out of the whole group.
Out of the whole group that she was assessing?
She was like second to lowest.
Or second to lowest. And the guy that she
I need to see that video. I need to see that link.
The lowest was
that's interesting.
Was like more of a less of an intellectual person. So
right.
The ROTC guy, she looked at him and sized him up and was like,
yeah, he's like, yeah, I'm Noah, go to ROTC. I mean, he was an all right kid. It's just.
What do you think about that?
Well, hold on.
I think that's cool.
No, what do you think about her doing that?
I was just using that video.
I think that's a good experiment.
I was just using that video as an example of, because you have a high IQ doesn't actually mean you know shit.
But he didn't. But she didn't. She didn't have a high IQ though, right?
That's what I said just because you. Yeah, or
because you think you have a high IQ.
Yeah, I was gonna say she didn't even have an high IQ.
Well, her IQ was average. It was fine. It was good.
It was good, but it wasn't as high as the people that she was trying to assess, right?
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
She thought she's like, oh yeah, I've got the highest because I go to Harvard and I'm studying molecular biology and I'm going to get my PhD in a couple of years or whatever. and it's just, that one, the hubris is astounding. And also the fact that, you think just because you're able to, and this is the actual issue here. The fact that you think you're able to go to these elite institutions, it doesn't have to be an elite institution. You're able to complete an institution, a 4-year institution, and obtain credentials doesn't actually mean you know anything. And so, like what you said, what really matters? So what is the intellect? And I would say the highest capacity of soul, which is the intellect, highest capacity of that is to be able to tell truth from fiction. If you can,
or to seek for truth. Sometimes
right,
we
but
can't
to discern
always
truth,
tell.
what is,
and it should be objective truth, right? Like, I mean, I mean,
that's what I mean. Yes, the shared.
Yeah, I'm assuming when you say truth, it is objective. It's objective,
So
or to search for, because it's not always super clear. It's easy to see. Some things are easy. That's true. That's false. But not everything is like that in life. So at least to search for truth.
And I think that's what you should endeavor to do. But that would be, someone who, if they told me they were an intellectual, I'd be like, okay, so you're really good at determining what is true and what is false.
But
and so I'll be like, hey, what should I do with my 401k? And if they know about finance, or it's just like you have very intelligent people who still think very stupid fundamental things.
You can be an intellectual on falsehoods.
Exactly.
So that's the thing. It's like your argument is talking about this one little thing.
You summed it all up there.
This one little thing, yes. This one little thing off to the side, and you are ignoring the whole thing, which is truth. Like we're talking about what's more valuable in. What is it? What is the title of the video?
American Anti-Intellectualism.
Yeah. Is intellectualism more valuable, or is truth more valuable? Because intellectualism could just be like the vehicle that we go about discovering or searching for truth.
That's good.
Yeah. So just because their intellectualism doesn't look like your intellectualism doesn't mean their intellectualism is anti-intellectualism.
It's anti your intellectualism, anti your intellectual, or how you define intellectualism.
And
okay.
Also, another thing is,
I get that. That's fair.
You can also intellectualize on truths, right? But devoid of wisdom, that's problematic as well.
Yeah.
Because knowledge has a way to quickly puff up and blind you, and it's a way to deceive yourself at the same time. So then you only start seeing, what you're saying, and it could be truth, and it could be.
It's like called confirmation bias, right? Where you try to work backwards, like you assume a truth, and then you start looking for supporting references to back up what you have come to view as your truth, subjectively, and then you're like, well, I know this, and this because this, and this lead like here's my proof, but it's not really truth.
Yeah, and there comes a point where I don't even think you're knowingly always throwing everything else out. You just stop seeing everything else. That's the moment that the self-deception starts, because now you're pigeonholing yourself into something, and it's like your mind, it's like your ego. At that point, your ego takes over your mind.
Yeah.
Sounds like some sports fans I know. I won't go into those teams. Sounds like some sports fans I know, but I won't say that.
At that point, I feel like the person steps aside and their ego steps in, and they are doing all the thinking for them. And that's why, sometimes even when somebody might have some good points, right?
Yeah.
We disagree with some of their points. You see them, like, let's say the politically, the right side attacks them, and it's like, hold up, they do have some good points, but the thing is that they are so unlikable because when they walk in the room, they don't walk in the room. The first person that walks in the room is their ego man, and that's all you see. And that's a big like you can sense that. That is some strong like energy right there. And you're like, this person is not who I want to be around, even if their thoughts are right, with the way they communicate, the way they think of other people, their thoughts about other people that are not like them. Just everything about them becomes just tainted. And it's easy to be like, you're an idiot, everything you're saying is stupid, because you don't want to listen to someone like that. About this guy in the video, I think what he is talking about, I think that he's doing a lot of that too. He's doing a lot of.
But at that point, are we all guilty of that at some point?
Yes.
Though,
100%.
are we all guilty of that at some point?
Yes.
I mean, even if it's on a very minute, tiny scale.
It's a tiny scale. I think we're like, I think we're guilty of it.
I think that's why you should let the truth guide you.
I thought you were going to say, I think that's why you should let me talk.
That would have been good.
Oh, man.
Oh, shoot.
I thought that's what you were going to say to me. Yeah, you're doing it. Hush.
No, I mean, I did the whole beginning part, so no, it's just.
But you were saying.
No, that's why I think, and I try to emphasize this to a lot of people, because it's if you let the truth guide you, I think that, and you just look for, how does the world work and who am I as a person? Don't spend too much time on that, because it could be
too abstract.
No,
for
just because
everyday life.
It can lead to I guess neuroticism, and you think too much about yourself, and you that breeds bad emotions. You shouldn't be thinking about yourself that much. But I mean, like, who are we as people? I guess maybe is a better way to put it.
I like that.
You let that be your guide, and then this stuff, I think a lot of it, you'll be able to discern the truth rather than just, people are so susceptible to like groupthink and, appeals to authority, because someone has fancy letters by their name that you have to believe what they say. I mean, we'll just a random example, health, diabetes 2, doctors, they have PhDs next to their name, but they're not prescribed. We know what works to treat it, but they just prescribe insulin.
The reason why they do that is because they know that they treat
it. That's their job.
Well, not only that, like they actually, like change your diet, exercise. But the problem is a lot of people don't want to take that advice, so their only other alternative is to just give you medicine. Sometimes,
so let me say this: I do have a gripe about that, because people, doctors do just treat and throw medicine at us. Okay, I don't want to say throw medicine at us. They prescribe us medicine, and it does help us. Mm-hmm. But it really bothers me when people are like, I went to the doctor and I told them all these things, and they were like, okay, well, let's do blood work. And then they came back and said, oh, my blood work is fine, but my glucose, but I'm showing that I'm diabetic, so they are giving type 2 and they're prescribing this, right? Mm-hmm. But they didn't talk about diet. They didn't talk about exercise. And it's like, hold up. Why do you need them to talk about diet and exercise?
That's something that's a personal responsibility, right?
That you're fat. You know that you're lazy, right? Excuse me, but it's like the people that are in the worst conditions sometimes do the biggest complaining. And it's like, look, your doctor is doing what he was trained to do. And in the meantime, while you're fat and lazy and not doing anything that you need to do, he's trying to keep you alive by giving you this insulin or whatever medication you need for your blood pressure or whatever. Not everyone that takes insulin and blood pressure medicine is like because of that. That's not what I'm saying.
I take blood pressure medicine.
Okay. So I'm just making a point here.
I'm very strict with my diet, as you can tell.
Very strict. This. I'm not saying I'm giving like an example of a person that exists in society, and not just rarely. It's a common type of person that exists. No, they come back and they're like, doctors don't know crap. I don't know why I go to the doctor and I waited 3 months for this appointment and paid them all this money. All they told me was all my blood work was fine, and they prescribed me a statin and then told me to come back in 6 months. And they didn't say anything about the diet. They didn't say anything about this and that. And it's like, because those things. The doctor is not your babysitter. The doctor is not your health coach. The doctor is not your dietitian. The doctor is not your counselor. The doctor is the doctor. They're there to listen to you, and based on what you tell them, they determine what blood work to order or what path to take next, because they have avenues for everything that they're suspecting. And then based on those results, then they treat.
Yeah.
Then based on those results, they treat. So that's just, I just had to say that because
I like it. I like your take.
Yeah.
Who? What I said?
Yeah. Why did I say that? Because
all I said is I take blood pressure medicine and I take my diet. That's all I said.
What prompted me to talk about that? Oh, because of the doctors and like they don't know.
He said PhD and doctors,
I mentioned I just said, just for example, like doctors have I didn't realize that. I mean, obviously, I know they're not trained in dietetics and nutrition and
some are. Like you can
99% are not.
No, but I'm saying like you have nutritionists that get a degree. Yeah, I'm just saying, but no, I'm just saying that there are intellectual people that delve in that science specifically and can diagnose and help you fix it.
Your doctor.
They're not.
Right. I get that. No, I get that.
They're not primary care physicians. Mm-hmm. Those are honestly, I guess you would consider those elective doctors because you don't. I don't even know. Does health insurance? Whatever. That's another conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it does if you're referred by the doctor.
Oh,
if you're fat.
You mean specialists? Specialists is what you're saying, right? Like how do you get referred outside of your?
Dietitians
are they specialists?
They're not. I don't know if they're doctors. Dietitians are. I don't think they're not doctors. So if you
they do have a 4-year. There are some that have 4-year degrees, though, right?
But they're not doctors.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to.
It's crazy. Plus your
I don't know. I felt like I have to think about it. I don't want to go into it in this video, but I did. Well, it's just a subjective experience. It's just anecdotal, but I did speak to a nutritionist just through the course of my own medical journeys, and I'm almost positive she had a PhD.
Well, she might have had a PhD, but dietitians, I don't think. We can look it up. I don't think dietitians.
No, I agree with you. I'm just saying there's some that.
I don't know about nutritionists. They're different from.
Well, the thing, Fred, too, is that as we saw with the Olympics and other things, you can get a PhD in anything nowadays. They grant them for any. If you wanted to study couches, you could get a PhD in couch study.
Do you have an example for that?
He's talking about women's studies. He's talking about like.
Well, those obviously. Yeah. But I mean, even. A PhD is just that's just the next progression past your master's, right? So after you can get a master's in pretty much anything. That's the year or two after your bachelor's, and then you can do more. You can do more study if you want to get a PhD. Like my engineering linear algebra teacher was a PhD. He was a Dr. Robinson. Mm-hmm. He was a PhD. You can get them in a lot of different things, and that's actually I had a bunch of. I don't know if we have time to go into it tonight, but there was actually a news article that came out this week about some new. This is more political, I suppose. An official that got appointed to the current administration who wrote about queering nuclear physics. And so they're
queering or clearing?
Queering. So they combined queer theory with STEM. And it's I'm not even kidding, like this is a thing, like it's
that just does not surprise me. It makes zero sense because
she makes more money than all of us, and she has more credentials than all of us.
What does someone's sexuality have to do with what physics? Like,
I don't know. I think we're probably gonna have to go on that in another segment, right? Like
we can, but I can say I do like. What? How do those even go together?
They don't, and that's there's other people who explore this more deeply. I mean, we can do it on this podcast. I think it's interesting, but it would be just repeating some things.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a real problem, especially as someone who came from a STEM background. The insertion or intrusion of the humanities into STEM has been a real issue for quite a while now. I would say STEM is one of the last true
don't infiltrate
things in the university, and it's like, hey, you guys want to do theory over there? That's cool, but keep it out of our department,
Yeah. Or or does STEM have theory also, or no? Because
yes
scientific
and no.
theory.
It depends how granular you want to get. I mean,
well,
even Einsteinian relativism is
a theory. It's a theory. It's a theory. It's a theory. It's a theory.
It maps onto the world with like huge, probably 95% accuracy, or maybe even more than that. But because the nature of science and mathematics and physics is so exact, that's another conversation.
That is 90 or 95% accurate based on the knowledge we have today. So that brings it back to, I think that we do need to, I do see why this guy did this video, right? I do see why he was like, everyone's an anti-intellectual. Nobody believes science. They're like, why would I believe the science? Or everyone's questioning everything, right? But at the end of the day, if someone has that mindset, to me, that they're like, I don't believe what anybody says, because if they're part of this institution, I don't trust them.
Well, then that's just like postmodernism, and that's where it's like nothing becomes nothing.
That's like a lot of on the right is like, I don't believe in the vaccines because.
Oh yeah. I agree.
But I do think that we do need to acknowledge what we just said about science. Science is a theory, like science is about the scientific method of hypothesizing, observing,
but it is also
concluding,
and then make sure
theorizing.
But it is also empiricism, because it's based on like results from the past.
Yeah. I said that. But it's still based on information we have up to this point.
Right.
And we're gathering more and more information. And there have been, I don't know what examples, I can't even name them right now.
Oh, there's
I don't
multiple.
even know if I could say this. Well, what I'm going to say next. Examples of where we were like, this was like such a theory for so many years that we might as well call it fact, right? And now it's coming up like, oh gosh, we just discovered something that could invalidate what we believe to be so solid that we were almost treating it as fact, and now that's turning that on its head. So I think we need to really stop talking, not stop, but acknowledge that I don't have a problem with evolution, for example, right? I don't have a problem with microevolution. But I think we need to stop calling certain things facts, and we need to start making sure that when we're teaching it to kids in school, not to downgrade the science, but we need to make sure that people know these are theories.
I think most people do, though.
No, I don't think kids know. You know as an adult.
Well, I mean, even when I learned it, though, when I read about certain things.
But that's you, Fred. Most people are not deep thinkers like you.
Okay.
So most kids that are in school, they're being taught these things as fact, right? I don't have a problem with them being taught these things. The thing is that it needs to be very explicit that these are theories based on experiments, based on empirical data, based on
everything we know up to this point.
That we know up
to this point. I agree.
And that's why I think the mistrust
comes
in. Yes, because then people weaponize that, right?
The science is settled.
The science is settled, and this is this way, and you all are an idiot if you question it. And it's like, hold up, don't do that, because the science is not a fact. Science is based on everything we just talked about.
It's a science. It's an investigation into the natural world. I mean, it used to be called natural philosophy until it was rebranded.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's David Wooten wrote a book on this called The Invention of Science, and he goes into the taxonomy and the etymology of
I'd like to read that.
I'd like to read that. Actually, I've got it in my house. It's
cool.
Of how we actually classify all this stuff because this has been evolving. Like science was not a word; it comes from Latin scientia, which is Latin for knowledge.
Knowledge, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that.
And the etymology is just like you go natural philosophy. Philosophy, what is that? Philos and Sophia, love of wisdom about natural world. So it's just people who love the natural world and want to study it, and it's deceptive, like you don't really
not always deceptive. You just have to infer the actual really origin of the meaning,
No, it's just a good. You have to investigate it thoroughly because it's.
I value science.
Maybe that's
I do too.
I greatly value science.
I do too.
I just think that we should be honest about what it is.
I value true intellectualism, not confirmation bias for what I want to believe, but let me look at all the data, all the theories, and let me formulate my opinion based upon what is known objectively, not just something that confirms what I want to believe. Create my belief based upon the evidence and what we know, or how we decide what we know, not just somebody that has a PhD said XYZ equals 1, 2, 3. No, I want to know why XYZ 1, 2, 3, and what does XYZ mean, and what does 1, 2, 3 mean. And I'm being very simplified, but I just want to know, I don't want to make an opinion based upon somebody's credentials. And I think that's what he's trying to bring up,
Yeah, because then we're relying on the person.
Yeah.
And at any moment that person could have started out great and then flipped, flipped. And then now they're they don't even know they flipped. And they are now.
Yeah, they might have got that degree and smoking meth outside of the classroom, and now they're writing the book by tomorrow. That's a bad example, but I'm sure.
A lot of these intellectuals are kind of crackpots, and that's the other thing is that they're, because the institutions and universal and institutions in academia have been so perverted for so many decades, you have really bad scholarship going through these institutions now.
That's
and
a good
the other
word.
thing I wanted to bring up was this is on the grievance studies affair that James Lindsay and Helen Pluckrose.
Should we save this? Yeah, should we save this for a next segment? I don't want us to go too far and change topics.
But let me respond to what you just said.
We'll save that for the next segment.
Yeah.
I want to respond to what you said about I want to, you value being able to look and research and look at the data and take a good objective and subjective look at it. But we should be given the space to do that. I think right now there is maybe a rise of what this guy in the video is calling anti-intellectualism, but I think it's a pushback on, being pushed to accept these ideas and things as facts. And I think that we should, respect people more. And I don't know, it kind of is a little scary, where the world is becoming so informational that now whoever is the leader of the group, whatever, now we have to listen to them. Right? And it's becoming, I don't know what that's called. What is that called?
It's like,
within societies or something. Oligarchy, society. When I feel like that's starting to spread up a lot, but it's social oligarchy.
Even a cult of personality where you're becoming a cult based upon the leader of that specific subgroup,
Yeah. Or yes, that. And so now that's the person that's at the top of the pyramid, and anybody else who doesn't, everyone gets in line, and you're the idiot if you question it or if you don't. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
I think that we need to, and then we start calling that person the anti-intellectual, or those groups of people, the anti-intellectual.
Deniers is what
the deniers. And I'm not saying that some of those people are not a little loony. I know a couple of smart people that are flat earthers, and I cannot understand it. And I'm like, you're just weird. Just I can't deal. Maybe I'm being biased also, right? And I need to be more open. But at the same time, it's like a silly argument. Like I don't even know why that matters. But if the Earth is flat around, we're making it work. Like the planes are flying. I don't know why that matters, but like flat earthers are weird. Flat earthers are weird. And I'm not saying that there aren't groups of people that are like not weird. Like people who are.
I'm not a flat earther at all, so
I'm not a flat
I don't get it. And I like fringe conspiracies. I'm all in for a good conspiracy, but it's hard for me to accept that one just because I talked to somebody like him and he knows math very well, and like he's explained it to me, and I'm like, how? I mean, I get it that some people may not get the math, and then maybe that's what this guy in the video, where you're just an anti-intellectual because you're not going to accept the math, and like, well, if you're not going to do that, then your whole vision of how you view information is just always going to be distorted at that point, right?
That's such
That's such a good point. And I don't think it gets
like the basis of your argument.
Yeah, it's like,
and a lot of flat earthers, I think, are Christians. I'm a Christian, right?
I didn't know that. I did not know that.
I think so.
I did not know that.
I think so. I'm like,
I've never heard that.
Look that up, Calvin. Can you look that up? Are most flat earthers
I did not know that.
But the reason that I'm saying this is because the ones I know of deny the science, and they say no. Scripture says that the firmament. It talks about the firmament when God established the firmament, and the firmament is flat. And I'm like, look, you're interpreting Scripture however you want to interpret Scripture to confirm your bias about the Earth being flat. So it gets really weird. I just think flat earthers are weird. What does it say? Read it out loud or loudly.
All right. It doesn't say about Christians, but it says 66% of millennials firmly believe that the Earth is round. Those who believe that the Earth is flat vary in the exact theories. At least 5% of the public say they believe that the Earth is flat, but have their doubts.
Did you Google are flat earthers Christians? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think
maybe that's something we can do off camera. And maybe bring that up. I didn't know that. Like I'm shocked.
More than half of flat earthers, 52%, consider themselves very religious.
Oh, wow. I did not know that.
And there might be like, what does it say after that? 30% consider themselves normal religious. I feel like a lot of flat earthers are like the country. Let me stop right there.
Yeah.
I don't want to
What'd you call me? What'd you call me? What is it? Hold on.
Yeah, I don't want that was kind of rude of me. What I was gonna say, I don't want to do that. But
I think that's a good note to end it off, right, people?
Yeah,
that was pretty good.
We can, because we've been. This was a great topic, and I feel like we just scratched the surface of it.
Yeah,
tip of the iceberg.
Nice.
And thank you for all that information. I think that was really good on the timelines and where
that was excellent.
Where you were chunking the information for us.
Yeah.
But keeping it like really simple at the same time. But
it was a good topic.
Was good.
This was like, I think this is what our podcast is.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that you sent us that video. Because,
I literally sent that in like I guess I sent it to show an example of the type of videos I normally like watch. Like that's the type of stuff I watch, and I want to talk about it with other people. Like I watch it by myself, and I'm like, this would be a good idea for a discussion, but I didn't think it was going to be the discussion.
You didn't hardly even get to talk about it because Chris and I over here. Well, you did, but we had so much more to say than
that was perfect.
Anticipated.
That's perfect.
So you were.
No, that's perfect.
Or I wish there was somebody I could talk to, and it's like, be careful what you ask for because we are like.
No, it was
I'm
good.
being facetious when I say that.
No, it was good.
Because that you opened up a whole can of worms.
Oh, it was good.
Pandora's box.
Yeah, I think that's a wrap. Thank you all for coming to First Draft.
Thank you.
Next week.